So we've got the takeoffs completed for the soil prep for the shrub beds and the biofiltration system. I don't have any depths of soils or hardwood on these plans, so we're just going to make up our own as we go because this is a class and I guess we're allowed to do that. So with that said, let's look at the shrub beds. We know we need hardwood mulch on all of them. And we have a mulch takeoff, but we really do not want to take everything off again. So we have a square footage here of the beds that are going to get mulch. So we're going to use that 18,601 as our quantity. We're going to enter it in manually. So if you go over to the right in your takeoff templates, you're going to see bark mulch. So we're going to enter the square footage and we're going to say 18,601 or whatever you came up with. And we're going to make it, let's leave it at 3 inches or 3 inches, okay? And you might know that in your area hard-rolled mulch goes for $42 a cubic yard. We shall see, and you guys, because it's such a big area, might be able to spread only 6 per cubic yards per hour for 3 people. Let's go 7. Have some fun here. All right, so once we're done, we hit OK, and because we've already entered in the quantity, we do not need to take it off. Now you can see it doesn't show up in your page over here, but it's going to be in your takeoff summary because it was a takeoff that was initiated even though it wasn't counted, and even if we didn't put in quantity, it would still show up there as a 0 quantity, okay? Now, let's put in some compost in those areas. So the same thing, we'll use our compost. Let's use the compost per cubic yards per 1,000, because that's how most of us deal with it. And they want 3 cubic yards per 1,000 square feet, MSS. M is for 1,000. And we're going to go ahead again, enter the quantity manually, and we're going to type in 18,601, okay? And again, we don't have to take it off because we already did, and we'll turn that off. And let's put 12 inches, now let's put 6 inches of topsoil into the bed. So we have 6 inches of topsoil. We pay $28 of whatever yard per yard for that. And we'll go back to form, and we're just going to go ahead and enter our square footage manually, not the cubic yards, but the square foot. And we're going to go 18,601. And it might not be a bad idea to say topsoil and shrub beds. And let's look at our production rate. Why don't we go ahead and stay with, let's go 10 cubic yards per hour, okay? So we've done our compost, we've done our topsoil, and we've done our bark mulch inside of this shrub beds. Now we got to look at this rain garden, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to enter in rain garden mix. Or bioswale mix, whatever it is. And unfortunately, we got to pay $55 a cubic yard for that. And because we're going to put it in at 12 inches, we're going to increase our production rate. We're going to go a lot better. Let's do 20 yards an hour. Those guys should be able to move at 12 inches, that big of an area. Dump and push. So if I go back to the form view, excuse me, it dropped down. I'm going to say 12 inches. And again, now we're going to enter the square footage, but in this case, the square footage, it looks like 8,007 square feet. Okay, and there you go. Now we're done with this particular part of it. Bioswales generally don't get bark mulch or anything like that. So we've got this, the soil prep and all that done. Now we get to count plants, okay? We have a plant menu that's kind of extensive, but we'll kind of look at it. And in that plant menu, if you go to pages, we're going to look at landscape and irrigation plan, and we're going to see that there's a legend here for plant material, and also this retention basin. It looks like they've got 100 of this and 100 of that, and I'm not going to punish you guys by doing that, okay? But we can say that, hey, they want these plants at 24 inches on center. And we can figure out how many plants there are. Now, these are all look like quart size. Why don't we go ahead and figure out how many we're going to need? I'm just going to go back to that sheet there. And by hitting the back button on my green arrow up here on top. And I'll go to ground cover. And I'm going to use the 1 gallon for now, but we're going to call it 1 quart container wetland plants. And that should be good enough for the sake of this course, but they want it 24 inches on center. And we're going to put that into our ground cover folder. And we're going to actually take it off on this because it's so simple. We'll just do it, okay? So I'm going to hit OK, and we got to make sure our snap is on. And what we can do now is go to here, and it's just going to click on that because we have our snaps. Okay, and again, I'm going to use my A button for the arc. Oops, I missed backspace. And now we have our plants, and it looks like we're going to need well, 2,000 plants. That worked out pretty nice. So now what we want to do is come in here and do our trees. So rather than going back and forth like this with these green arrows, if I wanted to, I could right click and say, hey, new tab. Now that's going to open up the potential to select another sheet. So when we do that, I'm going to choose that landscape sheet. When we do that, come on, we can go back and forth this way. We can have as many tabs as you want. You can even undock them where you could put one set of plans on another screen. We won't do that because I'm not sure if you have 2 screens or not, but you can actually undock it and then slide it over to your other screen so you don't have to toggle back and forth. But we're going to go ahead and do our trees. Now, it looks like we got 24s and 36s and 15s. And what we're going to do is go to our trees, hit trees, and let's do a 24-inch brahia. Okay, now those puppies are expensive down in California, so we have to be real careful with that one. But they're looking for a 24-incher. So I got this 24-inch box, and we're going to go... I'm going to use the initials right now. Spelled it right. Brahia. And you can use common names if you like. It's whatever you guys do in your company. But this is what we're going to use for our request for plant material quote. Okay, so when I hit OK, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Okay, and the reason I do that, like I said, when you start something in takeoff summary, it's always going to show up. We're going to do all of our, most of them. I won't hold you to this while you're watching me, but you're going to do all these plant materials. Okay, so now we have another 24-inch, and we're going to call this BP, and it'll be brachychiton. That properly. All right, and we can do the same thing. Start it, stop it, and let's do a 15. Okay, and we're going to kind of stop at this 15. Actually, we'll go to the 36 because there's no 36 here. I'll show you how to make one of those. This is CS. Okay. And let's do another one. Now, one of the fun things that you can do in here is when you have this, rather than do, click on this, you can also right click and duplicate here. If I duplicate it, I can do my Chitalpa, which is a CT. Okay. Now, we don't have a 36, so we're going to make one. We'll just use this box here. And we'll call it a 36-inch eucalyptus, EL. Okay, and all right, and I'm going to go with a 36-inch box. I want to make sure that I keep the names there, and for these 36-inch trees, we're actually paying $350 here for them. And number of crew and people in the crew, we're going to need 3 people to plant that, and we're only going to use 1 hour for that. Okay, so we just created a 36-inch box tree. Not a huge deal. In these guys here, I forgot to mention, we should probably put the box size so they show up in our request for plant material quote. 9-inch. And we'll do that real quick. That way we get this right the first time. These Glaucas are 15 gallon. Okay, now let's go count some plant material, okay? For some reason I keep getting an A. Okay, here we go. So now I can just go back to the landscape plan, and what I'm going to do, like this is a BP, I'm going to look for all my BPs first, okay? So if I find that BP, which is the brachychiton, I can click on it, and it'll initiate the green button, and we can go ahead and count them. Now, our symbol size turn off snap doesn't match this, and I think it's real important that you do match the size of this symbol here to the size of the symbol on the tree, and I'll show you why after a bit, but it helps you not miss anything. It helps you really dial in. So if I go to properties, I'm going to go ahead and assume that this is probably a 20, and if I click off it, it'll enhance the size of it and looks pretty good. So now we can continue. I just click on it, hit the letter N, looks like another BP. That's the Quercus. So we're just going to go through and try to find all of our BPs. And if you've done estimating, you know that can be all kinds of fun, but that's all right. That's what we get paid for. Here we go. We got to make sure we get it right so that they order the right amount of trees. Here's another BP. And if we don't get it, we'll obviously can come back. Okay. And now we got to look for, let's say CS or CT for the trees. And of course, there's obviously other trees. And let's find some CS or CT trees. There's a BP I missed. Click on it, hit new. There we go. CT, here's a CT. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. Now, when we click on it, we're going to notice something. We'll say, hey, well, that's the same color as the rest of them. So let's go ahead and turn it off now that we have one counted. And we're going to right click on it, go to properties. And first of all, let's change the size to probably 14. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good, but let's change the color. There's a lot of colors that you can choose from. And we'll use that one. That's not much of a difference. Let's go ahead and go with, let's use orange. Okay. So anyway, so what you're going to do is go through, count all the trees and the shrubs. Okay, so if you, again, you're going to go back to your legend, see what they are, what size they are, use the the shrub size accordingly, 5 gallon, 5 gallon, 5 gallon, 1 gallon, and we're going to go ahead and count all these wonderful plants. Okay, and once we get them done, we're pretty much done with this project here. We can add some root barriers if we want. We can put in maintenance and things like that, but this is going to take the bulk of the time, and I'm going to go ahead and complete it off screen, and then we'll come back with our counts, and then we'll take a look at sending out some plant material quotes, some irrigation material quotes, creating a proposal, changing prices from the quotes that come in, changing markup, having all kinds of the real nuts and bolts fun of this project, okay? So bear with me. It's going to take you an hour probably to do this or better, depending how fast you are. And then we'll touch bases back here, okay? Thanks.